Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Business Growth Show, where we talk about all components of business and how to utilize them for exponential growth. My name is Athin Cassiotis. I'm a business growth strategist, where I help business owners grow, scale, cut costs, and increase profit. And today, I have an awesome guest. He's a visual models expert, international keynote speaker, business mentor, presenter, and author. He is the founder of the Models Method and the creator of the Genius Model. He turns complex thoughts and ideas into powerful million-dollar visual models that drive revenue and growth. And his models are now used in over 30 countries and in industries ranging from defense, shipbuilding to one-to-one professional services. The Models Method is elevating how experts claim authority, communicate a cause, or sell a complex product. And welcome, Simon Bowen, and thank you for being on my show.
It's fabulous to be here. It's my pleasure.
You're welcome, mate. I'm sure it's going to be awesome for everyone watching this today. I've been looking forward to this. So you're a very successful entrepreneur. So for those people who don't know who you are, just please introduce yourself by telling us about you and your journey.
Okay, so I grew up in all the big towns in Western Australia, 400 people and 900 people and things like that. And these are environments where farmers tell you how to get to their house by drawing a little mud map in the dirt. Everything is communicated in those towns by, hey, let me scratch a mud map out for you. Let me draw a picture of that. Let me draw the cupboard I want you to build or whatever. And I started my working life in electrics and electronics, which interestingly is a world where reality is always represented by a visual, which is a schematic circuit diagram, right? And if you can't understand the on-paper version of reality, you can't actually deal with the reality, which is the actual circuitry. And then I, after working in that industry and in the motor industry in that field for quite a number of years in both technical and management roles, I thought I'd be a high school teacher. And so when I finished my BEd, they sent me to a school that I think is designed to test the vocational fortitude people to see if I can deal with teenagers, and I just knew that wasn't me. So I went back and did more study in adult education. I worked and lectured in TAFE and university, and then I became an internal consultant in change management, specifically in organizations. So how do you convert a 3,700 strong people strong government utility into a profit-making enterprise? And that, the culture change on that project was, part of my brief. And, I did that role for a while. And then I became an executive manager with one of Australia's larger companies, CSR. And, I was immediately told to merge multi-million-dollar business units to make one business unit, and also drove the sales team, selling a complex range of products, to building companies and things like that across a couple of sectors. And that was a really interesting learning curve in terms of both leadership, running a sales team, from the mechanics of team, the dynamics of people, and the structure of system and organization across a 20-odd strong sales team, and also the marketplace, right? And then after a few years doing that, I started my own management consultancy business. And so for 25 years, we've had a management consultancy that has carved out a reputation for the facilitation skills we have for complex, contentious kind of issues. So, the government will engage me and say, we're going to put 200 people in a room that are at war with each other over an issue, but they're unified in their collective hatred for us. And you've got 2 hours to get them to agree, to this thing. And I have a reputation for doing that. And the key all the way through actually has been visual models. When, I realized when I was teaching students, particularly teenagers, you can speak all you like, but when you show them, everything changes. I had a class of young Aboriginal boys, and I was, you could speak to them all you like, but the moment you actually got their hands onto something, you got them looking over your shoulder at something, the entire dynamic changes. In a room full of people that fundamentally disagree on things. And I've facilitated all the stakeholder engagement for $1.4 billion sports stadium that we built here in WA, which my work informed the brief that the architects tendered against, helped create the global selling system for a shipbuilding company that, you know, where the salesperson will take 12 to 18 months to make a $150 million sale. You know, law enforcement, health and education, combined government strategy for remote and rural communities, and then strategic planning for a company like BHP and the projects community. How are we going to control 7 $2 billion mine construction projects that we've got on the go at once, down to, hey, I'm an accountant with a small practice. How do I get my team aligned? And how do I get customers to actually buy into what we do? When accounting, with all due respect to accountants, when accounting is kind of seen as a bit of a commodity kind of service, you just do tax returns, don't you? And yet we do so much more than that. I'm a business coach, but business coaching is a commoditized term. How do I stand out and look different to everybody else? We're an engineering firm, but people don't understand engineering. The real value is in the stuff the customer actually doesn't understand. So I quickly figured out that if I've got 200 people in a room for 2 hours, and I just frustrate them for 3/4 of that time, so for 90 minutes, I just frustrate them. And that's to build tension, to want to have a solution. There's a big lesson in this, Athin. If there's no tension, there's no sale to be made. And everything is a sale. And so if I create frustration in the room, which is tension now, for everyone in that room to go, well, I'm not leaving him till we at least get somewhere with this. I've just burnt 90 minutes. I want to get something out of this 2 hours. And then if I move to a whiteboard at the 9-minute mark and said to them, I think I can draw this. And I started drawing a visual model and facilitated that model from the room. And so I would usually just start with the geometry. It might be a 2x2 matrix or a triangle or a Venn diagram or whatever. And I would start asking them to help me build the model. In 30 minutes, we'd get a model. And the whole room, instead of being at each other, the whole room is with me looking at that model out the front. We're all working on this together now. That's the big shift in dynamic. You move from face-to-face, compete and retreat kind of conversation, and every sale is compete and retreat, actually, if you think about it, to this, we're side by side working on this thing, even though we're coming from different angles. And that's a really different dynamic. And so within about 30 minutes, I'd get a model out of the room and someone would usually go, why don't you give us that at the start? And my response is, well, we didn't have it. You've built it. It's really hard for people to disagree with something they've contributed to. So I started to recognize how powerful visual models were. And without realizing it, that's how I'd sold for 25 years. I would have a bit of paper and I'd draw models and they'd buy into it and they'd say, okay, so what's next? And I go, well, we just go and implement these models in your business if you want to start, you know. And then about 8 years ago, someone said to me, you should teach this model stuff to people. And I went, that'd be ridiculous. Everyone uses models. And it turns out they don't. And well, not in the way that we do it, right? Not as a communication tool for sales and leadership and organizational change and project management, which is really the areas that we use it in. So, you know, I don't know. I mean, maybe it started with those farmers drawing mud maps in the ground with a stick, or the electrics and electronics, or just having to have a way of bringing complex, contentious conversations together. But this whole idea of psychologically powerful visual models to really unpack complex, contentious issues and get people to agree on something, you know, really kind of got a life of its own. And if we think about sales particularly, and I do want to share a model with you, and I know it's a podcast, I don't know if you share the video version as well, but I'll speak through it as I draw it. But everything we do is a sale, and actually all a sale is getting somebody to park enough of their opinion about something to be able to align with your view of it and be willing to take an action against it. That's all a sale is. And so, you know, we have to get people to agree to something. And if you can get them to agree to the model before they actually agree to the reality, you're halfway home on the sale. So that's a long answer to a short question, but that's kind of perhaps where all this came from. Yeah.
Love it, Simon. Very powerful, you know, integrating your story and where it's all come from and how, yeah, what realizations you had from that. So thank you. And yeah, happy if the video does get shared on Spotify as well as YouTube. So there's definitely room to see your amazing drawing skills or model skills, I should say there. So looking forward to delving into that shortly. And I guess probably think about if we're the business owner,
Yeah.
because you gave some good examples how you did it in a room. How can we use them, I guess, in these visual models? Because you mentioned selling to an extent there, but I guess there's a lot of different ways. So do you want to maybe share some ways?
Yeah, certainly. And I'd like to just put, I'd like to position two things first.
Yep.
Everyone talks about systems, business systems and things like that, but I became fascinated with the idea that perhaps the two most important systems in business are the system for thinking and the system for influence. And I first started getting this idea when I read Michael Gerber's The Most Successful Small Business in the World. And everyone knows him for the E-Myth. But I think one of the most powerful books he's written is The Most Successful Small Business in the World. And one of his 10 principles is a business is only as strong as the idea on which it's built. And so a business is only as strong as the idea on which it's built. And yet I meet so many business owners who are not clear about their own idea, right? And this links back to the second part of what I want to share. And so I started thinking about the way you think, the idea behind the business, and the quality of thinking of the people in the business as the system for thinking. But then that only turns into value when you can influence other people to buy into those ideas, right? Customers to buy from you, staff to work hard for you, suppliers to serve you, creditors to give you money, regulators to let you operate, and so on. And so I had this thought, well, maybe the most important system in any business is the system for elevated thinking and accelerated influence. And I started thinking, what is that system? And it hit me. It's what I've been doing for 25 years, which is powerful visual models. The first place you can use a great model in a business is to bring together the thinking in the business. And so when I sit down, and so the flagship model is the Genius model. Genius model can articulate in about 7 minutes the core genius of the company. Companies have a genius they need to take to market, and yet I'm going to say 100% of the clients that we have worked with over the years haven't captured a real articulation of their core genius. They've got, vision, mission, and values, so cultural definition. They've got organizational structure, policies, and procedures, so an organizing definition. But what's the genius? What's the capability definition that runs all the way through the organization? And so the Genius model, firstly, out of strategic planning, is a thinking tool. And then it becomes an influencing tool in terms of sales. So, imagine that you have a team manifesto, which is your Genius model. This is the core genius that we bring to the marketplace. A pre-frame model. These are the markets we operate in and who we serve. A value model. This is the deep, profound value that we deliver. And a futures model. This is what plays out over time with our clients, with and without us. And so this is what we're trying to help them do. As a core document that everybody has an inside knowledge of inside your organization, yet most organizations have nothing like that. The second, so the models are a powerful system for thinking and influence. The second thing I want to share is, but all of our customers only want three things. And, could life be this simple? But all of our customers only want three things. All of us are only ever selling three things. The first one is they want to be deeply, profoundly understood. There's nothing more powerful in marketing and selling than for the customer to meet someone who truly gets them better than anyone else they've met. And when you let the customer into the conversation through a model, they can point to parts of the model and say, oh, that's a problem. I need this. That makes sense. You're demonstrating to them that you get them. Second thing is everyone wants to be made safe. And so I came up with this idea of buyer safety, the 5 stages of buyer safety. How do we make the customer safer with you than without you every step of the way through the sales process? And when you draw models, they're incredibly transparent. The conversation is in front of both of you and there's nothing being hidden. And the first step in people feeling safer with you than they are without you is feeling like, well, you're not hiding anything from me. This is a really open, transparent conversation. So customers want to be understood. They want to be made safe. And then the third thing is something that people don't really want to admit, but the fact is everyone wants to win. Everyone wants something that's a little bit better than somebody else has got. Everybody wants something that is the best in the marketplace. Everybody would love to drive a Rolls Royce, even though they can only afford, a Toyota Corolla. Nothing wrong with Corollas, but there's a different price point. And so everybody actually really kind of wants to win, and no one wants to admit it. And what that means is people want to buy a solution that is conceptually superior to anything else in the marketplace, and conceptually superior to anything that they could do for themselves. Otherwise, what's the point, right? We always talk about add value, in the sales process, communicate your value. No, communicate your conceptual superiority. The superiority in the idea that you take to the market. Now, the problem with that is, how do you do that without ego? Because no one wants to buy your ego. They want to buy their own story, their own ego, their own success, right? And so it's the idea of being able to communicate ego-free conceptual superiority. Now, what happens with a model is exactly that. And let me give you a demonstration. And I want to use a model to do this if I can. And this is going to upset some of your audience because it's going to challenge a position that they're taking in the marketplace, and they're going to have to make a decision about whether they want to continue to hold on to that position or not. But what's the point of a podcast on business if we don't actually create challenge? So let me just share this in. I don't know if I can share my screen. Yes, I can. Let me share this for you so it's large enough for people to see. So if we think about how people go to the market, so whether you're a service business or a product business, it's kind of the same. But if we think about how people go to the market, particularly selling a complex, high value, high risk kind of solution, the world was told, and people were told, turn your knowledge, your IP into a product. Basically, that means you become a vendor, which is okay. Turn your thing into a system, turn your thing into a product. That was the marketing kind of strategy of the era. The problem with that is the customer buys product based on price. So the moment you turn your thing into a product or a system, now the customer's saying, okay, your system compared to somebody else's is more expensive. Why? The other thing about turning your core IP into a product or a system is it becomes more copyable, more commoditizable, if there's a word. And so people recognized that, and they thought, well, how do we market differently now? How do we deal with price pushback and price complaints? And so authority marketing kind of leapt into the view, where people said, produce content, become authority in your marketplace, become a thought leader. Now, this is the bit that's going to upset people. Thought leadership is commoditized. Stop it. Stop doing it. To be a thought leader, you need two things. You need an original thought and you need followers. And if you only have followers and no original thought, you're just a great thinker. And if you've got, followers, no original thought, you're a facilitator. And if you've got original ideas and no followers, you're just a great thinker. And the problem is thought leadership is commoditized. Now, the people that you will never hear calling themselves thought leaders are true thought leaders. And if you've ever looked on LinkedIn and seen someone put a post on LinkedIn calling themselves a thought leader, and two people have looked at their post and you've laughed at that, make sure that's not you. Now I'm not saying authority-based marketing and content-based marketing is wrong. I'm just saying the idea of claiming thought leadership as your position has some real problems, and it's almost meaningless these days because everybody knows that everybody's calling themselves a thought leader, which means no one's a thought leader. I mean, if everyone's a thought leader, then no one's a thought leader. And so, it becomes interesting. What's the next? And people go to the thought leader, by the way, for information, and they usually want it in today's world for free. That's the other problem with being a thought leader. All this content is for free, and people say, I'd love to have a coffee and pick your brain. I really love that article you wrote. I'd love to have a coffee and pick your brain. No, you need to pay for that, because we're a service-based business, and it's our thinking that we're selling. The moment you're a service-based business, the only thing you sell is your thinking. And so what's the blueprint for the brain you give people that lets them know that your thinking is conceptually superior to everybody else, and yet you do it without ego? The next level is you become a hero to your client. And that's actually a pretty good position because you bring some level of power to the marketplace based on what you know and how you execute and who you are, and your client comes to you for strength. And that's a pretty good position to be in. Now, both of these require ego to be sold. You sell from ego with these. I'm a thought leader. You know, I can save you. And what you tend to get here is clients who are more victims than, you know, they need you to almost save them. And yet every hero has a sage. You know, Luke Skywalker is the hero of the story, but is it Obi-Wan Kenobi? No, it's Yoda. You know, he's getting advice. He's getting wisdom. The sage sells from wisdom. He's getting wisdom. And Yoda says, pick up the lightsaber, Luke, attack me. And Luke doesn't want to. And he said, no, come on, Luke, attack me. And eventually Luke gets angry and he really goes for it. And Yoda shuts his eyes and just deflects and disarms him in a second. And he goes, it's the force, Luke, you know. The sage is often not necessarily bigger and stronger than the hero. And yet the sage sells with profound genius. 3 qualities of the sage. They sell with profound genius. They don't sell through ego, they sell through wisdom. They show up with powerful calm. They don't sell through pressure. They sell through presence. Now let's just pause on that for a moment. People might have noticed that as I draw, I'm not using PowerPoint, and that's deliberate and it's a conscious choice. Drawing draws people in. It's so much more powerful than clicking through a slide. But as I draw, it slows things down, and yet people still stay engaged because you're drawing and writing and they're watching it. And just the act of using a model creates this powerful calm. Having a model to have the conversation I'm having with you right now demonstrates a level of wisdom about this whole picture, because I'm painting the whole picture. I mean, I'm not saying, hey, be a sage. This is what a sage is. I'm painting the whole picture from start to finish. And it's clear I've really thought about this, right? And then the third thing is practical simplicity. This is the language of the sage, the ability to take the complex and make it clear. And we use these powerful visual models as little parcels of simplicity to carry a message. And so you can let ego go, but when you communicate with a model like this, you automatically step into that conceptual superiority that I talk about, but without ego. Because I've not talked about me in this picture at all. But it's pretty clear that I can take people to sage if they use models, and if we build a genius model and show them how to use the $1 million sales model suite and things like that. But I haven't talked about me at all in that. I haven't had to say I'm a thought leader. I haven't had to say I can save you. I just use the models. And how much more difficult would this have been to explain without this 4-level kind of pyramid? Now, here's the interesting thing. If you stop being the hero and you become the sage, you exit that hero level. And what that does is it allows your client to be the hero in their own story rather than you. And everything changes when you move from the idea of an ideal avatar to a hero client. You're no longer selling to victims, you're selling to heroes. And no one wants to buy your ego. They all want to buy their own ego as the hero in their own story. So when you vacate that space and become the sage, you allow them to be the hero. And actually, when someone's a hero in their own story, other thought leaders can't serve them because they're at a level below them, and it completely repositions you. So, you know, I know time is always pressing in a podcast. I would love to share one little model that people could use straight away before we finish. Remind me to do that people could use to sell straight away. It's a really simple model, but people could use it to sell straight away. But, you know, if you think about that conversation I've just had, trying to have that just in written copy or spoken words, or even on a PowerPoint slide, it's different. It would have been different if I was clicking through this as opposed to drawing it and drawing people in. But it allows you to take really complex stuff, hold a position as the conceptually superior originator of the thinking without having any ego attached. It takes pressure out of the sale, it takes scarcity and false urgency out of the sale, and it allows you to sell from a much more transparent, authentic position. I mean, I'm going to let you manage the time, Athin, but there's one particular thing I'd love to talk about, which is what a sale actually is. It's really important for people to understand that, and I'd love to share that little model that anyone in a service business could use almost straight away to actually improve their selling. And it's just a quick model without actually getting into, you know, how to unpack your genius model and capture the core genius of the company, all those sorts of things. But
yeah, love it, mate. This is powerful. I love this, and I'm sure everyone's getting huge amounts of value from here. But yeah, let's go with the flow, Simon. We'll make it happen. I can't keep you for hours, as much as that would be nice, but let's keep unpacking your genius and showing us how we can sell better.
Sure.
As well.
I mean, I'm going to apologise first for everyone that's, you know, using Thought Leader all the way through their marketing. It's not my intention to offend anybody, but I would just challenge people to think about what is it actually really doing. You know, as opposed to be the sage by how you show up, not by what you say, you know, and think about how you speak, think about your speech patterns, think about how you communicate, think about how you influence. And so when we think about a sale, in fact, if I've got the time for 2 of these plus the tool, I'll do it. Humans have an intensity scale. This is such an important model. And that intensity scale runs from high to low. And then we want to sell to people over time. And, you know, it takes a certain amount of effort to sell to people. And so we know that humans have this, humans have a high intensity for resistance. And what I mean by that is, we all have a hardwired, fast-acting system for saying no. It's how we stay alive. You know, we kind of resist everything to make sure it's safe first, and then we potentially look at it, which is not news to anybody. But the other side of this sometimes is news to people. We have a low intensity for acceptance. We do not have any hard wiring to say yes. So the customer system for saying no is often better than the salesperson's system to get them to say yes. That's actually the fundamental challenge of selling. Every customer, including you and I, when we're in the customer mode, have a system for saying no that we know how to run really, really well. And we actually do it even when we're buying something that we want, right? Now you walk into a shop, you chose the shop. You're looking around, you're interested. The shop assistant comes up and says, may I help you? You go, no, thanks, just looking. We've got a hardwired system for saying no, but you walked in there voluntarily. You're looking at stuff you're interested in. May I help you? No, thanks, just looking. And then 3 minutes later, you go up to that shop assistant and say, hey, do you have one of these things? And I'm betting their head, they're going, why didn't you ask me that when I came up and offered to help you, right? But at the same time, someone says, Athin, I love your business growth podcast. It's just incredible. And mate, you are such a genuine individual. You go, yeah, no, it's nothing. We do not have an automatic system for acceptance, right? And so the conversion, selling, not necessarily, not just for money, but a sale is when those two curves reverse. The point of conversion occurs when resistance and acceptance reverse, and the person pops out of the other side in agreement. Now, they might not be paying money yet, but they agree with the idea. And once they pop out the other side, we're just facilitating them into, through the process. Here's how you pay. This is what it looks like. Here's how we get going. And yet most people are talking about those things on this side of the model, which is where we're selling. And in order to make the sale faster and easier, we often use pressure. And if you apply increased pressure to a closed vessel, the sides move further apart, they don't come together. Pressure pushes the two curves away from each other, it doesn't bring them together. And we discovered that if we use powerful visual models like the Genius model, you move people towards this point of conversion more rapidly. So instead of me using pressure, I say, I think I can draw this. It's now me and them working together to understand the model rather than compete and retreat, which is typically what's happening in the sales process. We can bring agreement forward by getting agreement to the model before we get agreement to the commercial commitment, if you like. And then once we've got that agreement, we're just facilitating. So we sell the model first. And what's really sitting behind this is so many people sell using words only. And the problem with words is they're a human construct. And we're the only species on the planet that uses words to understand an idea. A pride of lions don't sit around and say, mate, what are we going to call it? And one of them says it's hunting. And another one says that's so aggressive. Could we call it acquisition? They don't actually, they just do it, right? But humans have to have a word. We use words only. And people say, I hear you, but it's just noise. So written copy, spoken copy. Now, words are important, but by themselves, they're not enough. And if we can increase the visual access someone has to our idea, 83% of the information we gather from the world around us comes through the optic nerve. Only 11% comes through the ears, which is the processing part of the brain for words. So if we can give people visual access to our idea, they say, oh, I see. And what I see is always more interesting than what I'm hearing. And so people will use clip art and, you know, things like that, which is fine, but it's still missing something. On the other dimension, we need to give people structural access to the idea. What I'm doing with this model is giving everyone structure for the idea. And when we give people structural access, they say, oh, I get it. And that's believable. So if we can put people up in this top right green quadrant, where they say, I see, I get it, it becomes desirable. Should have done the other way around. And then I kind of uncovered a little secret, what I call a super green zone up here, a zone that isn't so obvious, but once you see it, it makes sense. If I could execute this structural access at above an 8 out of 10, if I could execute it at a high level, and I could execute this visual access above 8 out of 10 at a high level, and we call that choreography. So the way I'm walking through this model with you right now has no accidents about it. It's really deliberate. And I use the structure of comedy to do it. I'm using pathways and punchlines and things like that. Desirable becomes buyable. And you end up being the one person everyone remembers. If you speak at a conference and you draw rather than use slides, and you're walking through models rather than a big picture on the screen, a big stock image on the screen behind you with a sentence across it, you're the speaker everyone remembers. The measure of being the true thought leader is if you're the only speaker people remember at a conference of 20 speakers, and you're the only speaker whose content people remember. Now, the moment they go, oh, I remember Simon Bowen, he had these really cool models, because that's actually the only thing I want them to remember. I want them to remember that I had these cool models, and if they want to see them again, come and, you know, get in contact with me from a sales point of view. So these two models of you know, the resistance and acceptance curves crossing over and reversing being the point of conversion, and this 2x2 matrix of visual access on the vertical and structural access on the right, producing this quadrant where people go, I see and I get it, this is believable, this is desirable and viable, are key to this. And then you know, what we're left with is, what's a model that people could use that helps them to sell. But do you have any questions or observations before I jump into that?
Yeah, this is powerful. I love that, how you're flipping the script there, Simon, with how we're looking at things. And I guess the layers that are building on top of each other, I think the biggest thing that I've coming out of this, it's like, you build it on top and then it becomes this robust thing that really, delves deep into people. I love that. Just to check, because I know you mentioned a lot of models. Have you shared all the models that you wanted to share so far today, or was there one more?
Well, I have hundreds of models, but I think they're the models that really help people understand why visual models. People say, oh, you build visual models. And my response is, it's really not about the models.
Yeah.
It's about how you think and influence in the most powerful and sage-like way, and the models just happen to be the language of the sage. But the two that I've just shared, that 2x2 matrix of visual and structural access, and the two curves that converge and then cross over that flip the intensity of acceptance and resistance, I think are good underlying models that, if people just could remember that one thing, conversion is when the resistance curve heads downwards and the acceptance curve heads upwards, and they buy the idea, even if they haven't paid the money yet. That's when conversion occurs. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of a good basis for, particularly if people haven't thought about models before. There's a lot of territory being covered here.
Yeah, definitely. And I guess something that's been on my mind today that'll I'm sure will help me, but also likely help a lot of other people. It's going to be a two-part question. The first part's going to be easy for you to answer, but the second part's the bigger one. Is I'd love to know, number one, what software you're using to do this to make it look really awesome. But the bigger question is, a lot of people are doing events now these days, right? Like I myself, I do virtual events at the moment. So doing cool things on Zoom. Now I could have like an iPad or a tablet or something where we could draw like what you're doing.
Yes.
The other option is having flip charts as well, right? Where I can have the flip charts where you can do it physically, in person, and potentially a combination. So I'd love to hear your thoughts around that side of things, around the differences, and then maybe, even another layer about when you're presenting your offer, right? Because at some time in the event, you're going to present some sort of offer to people if they want to continue working with you. And what's a good way of doing that to, get the highest conversions as well?
So, particularly if you're on Zoom, but even if you're at an event, and I speak at a lot of events, but if you're on Zoom, screen real estate really matters, right? And distraction factor really matters. So, my studio here is deliberate. Everything behind me has been constructed to be on brand. We want to occupy this sage-like kind of positioning. In my 60s, I'm not a millennial, so the background isn't going to be millennial aged. And we want to occupy as much screen property as we can, right? So the benefit of drawing on an iPad is that it occupies full screen. Now, if you're in a room at a conference and you're walking around with your iPad wirelessly, presenting both PowerPoint and drawing from your iPad, and it's going up on the big screen behind you, you will be the only presenter at the conference doing that. And everyone will go, man, that's cool. What's he doing? How's he doing that? What's his technology? And the truth is, you just carried an Apple TV with you and asked the audio-visual guy to plug that in so you can AirPlay, and your own Wi-Fi router, your own Wi-Fi modem that you've plugged in somewhere in the room before you got to get set up with the AV guy. I mean, I bring my own little Wi-Fi modem. I just plug it into the room. No one even knows I've done it. And so by the time I get to the AV guy, the Apple TV is going to connect to my iPad automatically so I can AirPlay it. And I say to the guy, I just need you to plug the Apple TV into the screen. And he goes, well, where's the computer going to be? And I'm going, no, I'm going to be carrying it. It's my iPad. And he said, well, what else do you need me to do? And I go, nothing else, because I don't want to leave it to the AV guy, right? So he plugs the Apple TV in the screen. He brings it up on screen. I'll have an opening thing like this there for him to test it with on my iPad. That can go up on screen, and we're good to go. Now I can do everything on my iPad from the iPad. I can flip in and out of PowerPoint. I can go into the drawing package I'm using, which is called Notability. Now that is iPad specific. People say to me, if you're on Android or Windows, what's the app? And I go, it's an iPad. It's the Apple Pencil, really. That I haven't seen anything in the Android and Windows market that matches the Apple Pencil, to be honest. And the best package I've found, and I've tested heaps of them, to draw from live in front of an audience is Notability, because it's so clean. There's minimal distraction. It's fast. It's, it's the easiest thing to use. So if you're walking around the room with a microphone on, carrying your iPad, drawing and presenting, there's a part of in today's world, if you are not technologically ahead of everybody else, you're a dinosaur. So if you're not using tech better than everybody else, how could you be the sage? And if you're not using tech better than everybody else, please don't call yourself a thought leader, right? If your sales technology is clunky, you're already behind, right? And it's an uncomfortable reality, but it's true. You want to be the best presenter in a room at a live event, show up ready to roll with the and you know what? Be the one person that the AV people go, I tell you what, here's a professional. Here's a quick little tip. When you show up for the AV people as a professional, they'll do everything they can to make you look good on stage. When you're respectful, you're appreciative, and you show up like a professional. So I give them my Apple TV and I go, all you're going to do is plug this in and put an AV feed into the projector. And they go, okay, well, do you need to connect the iPad to the Apple TV? I go, I've already done that. Do you need to get onto the Wi-Fi? I bought my own router. All right, okay. Do you need anything else? No, that's it. Do you need us to flip, get the iPad onto the screen for you? No, it's already here. Just put it up on the screen, make sure it's there. Cool. You're going to play videos? Yeah, but I'll be playing them through the Apple TV. So the HDMI cable will carry it. Can you get an audio feed out? Yeah, we can do that. Cool, mate. And you're the one speaker they want to support. They want to make you look good, right? On Zoom, you want to occupy screen space. And you want as minimal distractions behind you, but when you go to the iPad, you still want you right next to it, and you want branding. My shirt is the same color as our brand color. The lights in the background are our brand color. The lighting is deliberate. It's daytime here in Perth. Why have I got a dark room with lighting? I can control it. If I have all the blinds open, I can't control the light. The overhead lights are off so that it's not shining on the top of my head. We don't want that to happen. I'm not that hirsute, So I've got a ring light in front of me and a great camera in front of me and a ring light behind me that is lighting up the background here. You can see the difference if I turn it off. The 3 circles, which is a genius model, just turned into a piece of art, pops when the lights come on. I'm using Notability on my iPad to draw. My iPad is connected to the computer by a cable so that I don't have any lag. And I'm using Ecamm Live for all of this switching effect that I'm doing at speed, so that, people, so you don't have any of that delay, when you go, oh, let me share this into my screen, and then there's a few seconds while you kind of get the thing brought up. ECAMM Live, which is a Mac only machine. On Windows, it's OBS, Oscar Bravo Sierra. And if people want to get great at Zoom, there's a lady who I have no connection with. I just found her on YouTube called, I'll type it into the chat for you, called Kat Mulvihill. And she honestly has one of the best YouTube channels on how to be a superstar on Zoom, and using all this technology. I mean, the branding around me with the logo and everything is all happening in Ecamm Live. This screen is happening in Ecamm Live and so on. So you do actually have to show up technologically like you're ahead of the market. Like, you can't take a conceptually superior service offering to the marketplace and be technologically behind everybody else. You got to show, unfortunately, in today's world, tech is important. You got to show up conceptually superior. You got to have a great mic. So the audio, people will forgive poor quality video, but they will not forgive poor quality audio, right? So, it's a great question, Athin. It's not my wheelhouse, but I put a lot of time and energy into, remember, how you show up is how people judge you. So it matters, right?
Yeah, love that. Thank you for sharing that, Simon, because you got a bit into it. And yeah, I've got Windows a lot myself, but I've known people that have just got an iPad specifically for Notability, even though they've got the Windows stuff. So I'm definitely thinking about going down that. And
I don't know how many iPads I've sold, all being responsible for selling, right? But I've had a lot of people who are on Windows going, I'm not going over to Mac, and I go, okay, have a go. Use OneNote or something like that, or Notes Plus. There are a few note apps that are really great, and they work on both platforms. Notes Plus is a great app. OneNote is, obviously is a Windows package that a lot of people use. Pen Ultimate is a notes package a lot of people use, and Paper 53, I think it's called. But it's actually all about the Apple Pencil. That's the thing that makes it work. And then it just so happens that Notability, which is an iPad-only app, is just so clean and uncluttered and easy to use. And so I've had a lot of people going, yeah, look, I tried, and now I've bought an iPad,
Yeah.
And they're using it with a Windows computer, which is fine, but it's just clean. Yeah.
Yeah, awesome, mate. Now, thanks for sharing. And I do have a Blue Yeti mic as well, like yours, to make sure that we've got some good microphones. If anyone wants to think about getting a good mic as well, they are very good for a decent price, right? You can go really high, but for a good price, they're great mics. We've covered so much today, Simon, and you've shared so much gold. And I guess, as we're wrapping up, I guess, what one key piece of advice would you like to give, to all the entrepreneurs watching and listening today? What's coming up for you that you can end us with on a strong note?
Do I have the time to share a quick little model? Because I think that would be advice.
Of course, you always do, mate.
So I had a lady that came up to me at the end of a conference I was speaking at and said, I have an expensive baby giftware business in Sydney, and would models help me to sell? And I thought, okay, it's retail, it's interesting. Let me, where's it gone? Something bizarre's happened. Let me just get out of that for a moment and bring it back in. She said, it's retail, would it work? And I said, okay, that's interesting. Let me think about it for a second. And so she sells baby giftware, to people going to baby showers and stuff like that. And I said, so what's the question people ask when they come into the store? People really should pay attention to what's the first question customers ask. And she said, they usually say something like, I'm going to a baby shower or christening. Can you give me some gift ideas? I said, great. Because the question they ask is where you should start. Okay. And so I said, I want you to, I'm going to suggest you reorganize the store. So into, rings, and could you color code the shelves or something so it looks a bit like this, and then maybe have a model like this under the counter on a laminated sheet of paper. And so when the customer comes in and says, I'm going to a baby shower, I've got to buy a present, do you have any suggestions? The shop assistant, which is usually like a 16 or 17-year-old girl on part-time, says, pulls this out from under the counter with a whiteboard marker, says, hey, listen, you'll notice the store is organized in a color scheme, right, from the outside to the inside, and have the counter right in the middle in the red zone with the red stuff around it. And they go, yes. She goes, around the outside in the blue zone are the gifts that acquaintances and distant family would buy, and they range in price from $25 through to $50. In the green zone are gifts that close friends and family would buy, and they range in price from $50 through to $150. And in the middle of the store around us, here in the middle of the store, we call this the heart circle. And they're the gifts that are going to be super important to this child's life would buy, and they're $150 and upwards. Tell me, what's your relationship to the child? That's the punchline. What's your relationship to the child? Now, we already know that grandparents are now spending $150 because there's no way they're going to allow themselves to be relegated out of the heart circle, right? And she said, will it work? I said, I don't know. I've just thought of it. Give it a go. And then I found out later, that because in retail, you want to increase the average spend per customer, right? People were fighting to get off the blue circle. So the shop assistants say, what's your relationship? Oh, I went to university with the mother. Okay, you're probably in the blue circle. You should be buying something from the blue circle. They go, no, we were much closer than that at uni. I'll be at least in the green circle. So their spend by their own choice has gone from 25 to 50 to 50 to 150. And they're probably going to spend about 75, right? As opposed to 45. Simple little circle. And the key to it is, this is the common stuff. This is the special stuff. And this is the customized stuff. So imagine you're a service provider, a consultant, accountant, or something like that. And people say, how could I work with you? We do have some off-the-shelf product or some off-the-shelf offerings out here in the blue circle. That is a training program or a course or whatever. We do have some tailored solutions in the middle circle where we take some of this and tailor it specifically to you. And then there are those people that really, and it might not be red, it could be different color. There are those people that really want a very customized, personalized solution that taps deep into the genius that we bring to the market. What level are you looking for? And so let the customer buy the level, let the customer choose the level they want to buy at, and then sell them that level. And, they will often say, I'd really love the middle, but I think I can only afford the outside. Well, let's talk about that. And let's see if there's a way that we can find to help you get to the middle, or at least into the tailored layer. And I go, yeah, that'd be really cool, right? And now we're having a real conversation. So one bit of advice that I give to people, most people sell from the outside in. Here's our product or service. You should sell from the inside out. You should always be selling with the highest value, most conceptually superior solution in mind for the customer, because there are people that are going to buy it. And here's the bit of advice. So many people say that my market only buys on price. But in every market, there's someone who is the highest priced, and they're usually doing very well. And so the question is, why shouldn't that be you? And there is a great book called Someone's Got to Be the Most Expensive, Why Not Make It You? And it's a fabulous book, right? So in every market, someone's charging more than everybody else, and they're usually doing better than everybody else. How could that be when the customer only buys on price? People buy when someone truly deeply understands them, and they can demonstrate that. When someone makes them safe, and when someone offers them a conceptually superior solution to anything else they've seen or could do themselves, and communicates in a way that is transparent and doesn't rely on the salesperson and the company having to use their ego to make the sale. So, sell from the inside out, which is your core genius. Don't sell from the outside in, which is, how much could we charge for this service kind of thing. Look at coaching. So many people go, oh, my coaching program is going to be between 15 and 25, because that's what most of the market sells a coaching program for. As opposed to my core genius is worth $100,000. So I'm going to figure out how to sell it for $100,000 and then build models around it and communication around it and a solution around it that allows me to sell it for $100,000. It's a fundamental shift in the way we should be thinking about how we sell.
Yeah.
Make sense?
Definitely, mate. Love it, Simon. Powerful way to end this on a strong high, and how we can, really think about it. I love that from the outside, from the inside out, of going with that, the bigger genius and moving out. So yeah, really profound. Love it, mate. And so much gold today. And, we connected through our networks. I learned about your awesome journey from doing a huge variety of roles at Ross Gray International to now, more recently founding the Models Method over 7 years ago, where you help to turn complex thoughts and ideas into powerful $1 million visual models that drive revenue and growth you're an awesome guy. I'm sure everyone will agree. And I'm just amazed at how good your drawing skills are and model skills from today. Definitely watch the video, everyone, on Spotify and YouTube when you are watching this and listening to it. And I'm sure, Simon, you'll continue to help business owners sell more using visual models. And I'm very grateful that we connected, and I look forward to working with you in the future. So, Simon, how can people find you and get in contact with you?
Sure. I can give you a link. Well, two things, actually. Obviously, our website is modelsmethod.com. But what I might do also is give you a link for just a little tool that shows people how to use the bell curve as a price positioning model, which means you don't have to be in the lower price end of the market. And I can give you a link where people can go and actually get that. And, they can subscribe to my LinkedIn newsletter. I email every Tuesday, Thursday with really good content. I actually write the emails. So, we have a lot of people that are subscribed to our, weekly email sequence. But modelsmethod.com, and I can give you a link to that bell curve so that people can use something straight away out of the podcast as well. All right.
Yeah, awesome, mate. Thank you so much for that, Simon. And definitely check out Simon, guys. He's the master of models in so many different ways, as you can see. And I want to thank everybody for watching and listening to this show as well, where we talk about everything on business growth. And please like, subscribe, and leave us a 5-star review. And you can find me on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, and YouTube as Athin Cassiotis, or visit my website, athincassiotis.com. And if you want to grow, scale, cut costs, and increase profit in your business, you can reach out to me on any platform to see if we're a good fit. And I completely agree with you, or do I? The only way you will know is if you tune in next time. So until next time, remember that our business grows when we learn skills and take action using them in spite of fear. So remember to design your growth and results.